All right, good afternoon, folks. It's Jason with the Primal Outdoors channel. Now, if you've been following what I've been doing here lately, you know that I'm back in my shop and I have completely dismantled the interior of my van and I'm rebuilding it from scratch. And today I'm going to start getting ready to install the new battery system that I'm going to be putting into the van. And the battery system I'm going to be using is the Comvolt 6000. Now, I've done a complete review before on their 4200, but this is their big boy, the 470 amp hour version of the 4200. Basically all the same features except for it is a lot more amp hours. This particular unit also has two solar ports on it, which is an upgrade over the 4200, but this basically is going to power every accessory in my van, and it's going to make it a lot easier to do so because it comes with a host of accessories that makes the whole system extremely plug and play. So I'm going to get started on this, and if you want to follow along, I'll be sharing a lot more details as we get deeper into the project. So something I've been doing a lot in the van is just bringing in the different components like the Velite AC, the Comvolt system that I'm going to be putting in, and then my water tank, and then I've got my heater from Velite as well that I'll be putting in. And I've just been kind of playing with it and trying to figure out, like Jenga, how everything is going to fit in here and work the way I want. And then I take a lot of measurements and I go back and I've been drawing everything in some detail in Fusion 360. So one little quick note here is the Convolt does come with rubber feet if you are setting it up normally, but since mine is going to be laying on its side, I went to my local Ace Hardware and just picked up some more feet to put on each side, and these ones are a little bit lower profile than what comes on it, so that way it won't stick up so high, which will help with my space inside my cabinet. Alright, so I'm starting to work on putting some of my outlets that I'm going to have around the van in. Now, the Comvolt has a PDU, which allows you to connect DC circuits, but it also has an ACU that allows you to hook up multiple AC or household electrical circuits, 110 outlets. I'm not going to use the ACU because I'm only going to have 2 outlets in the van. I don't use a lot of household power appliances or 110 volt appliances. Most of the stuff that I use in the van is powered by USB-C. Like a power delivery port. But one thing that you should think about is if you are going to use the ACU because you want to have more outlets, is you can see that they are all labeled as having a certain amount of amperage. So 20 amps, 15 amps, 15 amps, 15 amps, so on. You only have as much amperage as you have plugged into the ACU. So coming out of the Comvolt, you'll come out of one of the 15 amp ports. That is your main feed line. So technically, even though each one of these ports can handle 15 amps, you only have 15 amps coming in. So if you actually try to pull 15 amps off of 2 ports, you would blow your circuit. Now, one thing you can do with the Comvolt 6000 that I have is it has a 30 amp circuit. You can cut the cord and put the 30 amp plug on there. Then you would have a 30 amp feed coming in here, which would give you more. But just be aware, if you do put multiple circuits on here, you only have as much power as the feed coming in. Like I said, it's not going to be a problem for me because I'm only going to have 2 circuits. So I'm just going to plug into the 2 15 amp circuits right on the front, make it really easy. And I'm just running extension cords to these little outlets that have pigtails on them. That way I don't have to do any type of real wiring. It's just plug and play. I'm working on the back wall. I've got some insulation down, and then I am just putting a piece of plywood down low because that's just going to be covered up by cabinetry. So you're not going to see it. Up above it, I am going to do the same paneling that you see up on the high top. Now over here, along this spot here, I'm going to leave a gap there that I'll eventually put a trim board over, but I want it to be able to come off so that way I can access the wiring. And I'm going to bring the wiring up through this channel here and then across the back here. What I'm going to do is use some of this wire loom and I'm going to wrap these hard edges because I want to make sure that the wires don't chafe over time. Alright, so I've been taking a few minutes just to look and figure out how I'm going to get all my electrical components to fit in my very tight little space that I have here. Admittedly, having the AC in here has taken up a lot of my utility space, but I know it's going to be worth it to me this summer. Now, one thing that is really nice is when it comes to the Comvolt PDU, where all of my accessories are going to come and plug into, they just have these nice little push down connectors. So all I have to do is strip the wire back a little bit and slide them in, and then they clamp down. So I don't have to mess around crimping and heat shrinking and all that mess. So it's going to make the installation a whole lot easier. All right, so the next step for getting the AC up and running is I'm going to plug it into the Convolt, the power. Now they give you a really long cord that you can use to go from the AC, which has a Anderson plug on it, then it has a nice fuse, and then some ring terminals for you then to connect into your battery system. Now the Comvolt 6000 has two Anderson plugs on it. One Anderson plug is going to go to my bus, which then powers all of my other accessories. The other Anderson plug I'm going to plug the AC directly into. So I bought another set of Anderson plugs, and I'm going to go ahead and shorten this up a little bit, and then I'm just going to plug from the Anderson on the AC right into the Anderson of the Comvolt. The Comvolt 6000 does come with a 30 amp DC to DC, and you can wire this to your start battery with the provided cabling, and that will allow you to charge your Comvolt while you're driving up at 30 amps. But I know from my own experience that 30 amps just isn't quite enough, especially considering the fact that the 6000 is a 470 amp hour unit. For me, living out of the van all the time, I need to be able to charge as fast as I can. So I'm going to use a third-party DC to DC that will allow me to charge up to 50 amps. Now that's a lot of amps that I have to be able to get from the start battery here all the way to the back of the van. And in order to make sure I don't have any problems with voltage drop, I'm going to be installing this 1/0 marine grade cable. So one thing you should consider if you are thinking about upgrading the DC to DC above 30 amps is whether or not your stock alternator can handle it. A long time ago, I upgraded my alternator to a high output alternator, so I have plenty of juice to be able to go up to 50 amps. So this area here is going to be where I'm going to have my main kind of control center, and that's going to include the Comvolt screen, fuel gauge for my spare tank, and some controls here for lighting and my spare fuel pump and all that. Now, as far as wiring everything up, there is a bunch of wires I had to do as far as the fuel gauge and all that stuff. Now, when it comes to the Comvolt screen, it's really easy. It just uses a CAN bus, so basically some Cat6 cables that run back to the main unit, and it's all powered through that. And then that way I can control the Comvolt, turn the inverter on and off, monitor the system, and control the ports on the PDU all from the screen. All right, folks, well, we are out and about. The van is not actually completely done, but I ran out of time and I needed to get down the road because I am going to Flagstaff for the big Overland Expo there. Once I'm done with the expo, I'll head back to the shop and wrap up the last few things that have to be done in order to complete the entire build, but it is good enough for the moment. Now, as far as the Convolt system, I did get it completely installed. I've got the control panel in, and all of my accessories in the van are wired and functioning as I wanted. I do want to go over a couple of things on the Convolt before we wrap up this video. Now, one of those things is charging. Now, I touched on that already a little bit with the fact that I will have a DC to DC running 50 amps when I'm driving. But when I'm stationary like I am right now out in the middle of nowhere, I do have solar, which I only have about 300 watts on top of the van. But because the Comvolt actually has 2 ports for connecting solar, I also added a port here on the side of the van so I can go ahead and set up portable panels. I still need to get something I want to work. I'm hoping maybe I might find something that interests me at the expo that I'm on my way to. The other thing is if I am somewhere that has shore power, I do have my shore power plug, and then the Comvolt did come with a 30 amp shore power charger that I have hooked up inside. So I can just hook an extension cord here to this and be able to charge whenever I have that option, like when I'm at my shop. Now, the Comvolt does actually have an app, but be honest, right now in its current revision, I'm not super happy with it. There's some little quirky things that I don't really like, but I do know that they are in development. I'm working on a more robust app, and I'm hoping that once that comes out, it will resolve a lot of the issues that I am having. But as it is right now, it still works for me to be able to monitor the system and see how much charge I have coming in, how much is going out. So that's nice, especially when I'm driving and I have my phone up on my little stand. I can at least monitor the Convolt and know where I'm at as far as charge. Now, one thing I didn't really go through very well at the beginning of the video is, and I should point out, is the front of the Convolt does have ports that you can plug straight into. It has a USB-C port, a USB-A port. It has 2 cigarette lighter style ports, and then of course it has the 2 AC plugs, and then on the 6000 I have here, it has the 30 amp plug. Now, of course, I'm not really using it that way. The Convolt is designed to be able to be kind of a portable system. I do feel like the 6000 is pretty large and heavy. I don't see too many people really carrying it around. I see that being something more that people will do with the smaller versions like the 4200 and especially the 2200, which I will be sharing a video about on my channel here in the future. So most of the time, I will be completely relying on the PDU that I put in and having everything plugged in and having my USB ports around the vehicle. But I do want to point out that there is ports on the front of the unit if you want to use them. All right, folks, so as far as the Convolt is concerned, I think that wraps things up. I do like this system because it's very plug and play and easy to set up, and it made it a lot easier for me to get the van to a point where I can get down the road to Expo. If you guys are interested in this system and you want to look at it for your own build, definitely check out my link in my description. If you do have any other questions about it, leave those down in my comments, and we'll see you guys again outside.